Good morning, everybody. Betting for breakfast, week zero. We got games. It's time to go to work. College football season is here. Listen, everybody, make sure you download the Sharp app. You can get all our episodes in the app. You can watch them if you're not up early joining us here on YouTube. I'm Mark Drumheller. I'm here with my guy, Dave Gleckner. And Dave, I've been waiting for this day probably since I want to say April when the FCS ended and we cashed in our Sam Houston futures tickets. But we got live games back we can bet on. I could not be more excited. How you feeling today, my man?
Dude, pumped. It's Saturday. It's college football. Yeah, it's a little hot and sticky out, but you know what? It just tells you, the sport we love, the sport we started this, great betting for breakfast show here is back, and it gets me excited. I don't care what is being played today. You can give me UTEP, you can give me UConns. I'm betting it, and I'm pumped. I'm pumped just to be back. So here we go, bud.
Yeah, tremendous schedule today. We got a handful of games, right? And some of the games are not ones that we would have circled like, hey, I can't wait to watch this one on the schedule. But we got some good ones, and it's all day. Like we're starting 1 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern time. We're going all the way up to night. So it's going to be college football all day. Cannot wait. Before we get into the actual games, Dave, I just wanted to get your take real quick on the Alliance, right? The Alliance has been big talk on social media. A lot of people, these conferences now joining forces to compete with the SEC. Listen, I enjoy it. Like I think that this is something that's going to be good for everybody. Seeing these conferences combined, I know we touched on it a little bit prior. What are your thoughts with these conferences now that you're starting to see that this is, going to be a real thing going forward for college football?
It's the end of college football that we knew growing up. The
Yeah.
exciting Miami, Florida states, the Michigan, Ohio states. I mean, as much as they just won't mean as much anymore. In the conference championships, you can almost throw out the window. I don't even know what they'll do there. So it's all about who you play now, and the schedules are going to really try and align to that. And it's you'll get more good games. I'll give you that, right? I do think
Hmm.
you'll get some more quality. But in the end, the it's just going to be a little murky at first, and we'll get through it.
Yeah.
We're going to see some really interesting matchups. That's the best part that will come out of this, right? You're going to see some West Coast,
Hmm.
East Coast rivalries, start to build. So there'll be cool stuff, but the end of the traditional is almost what I feel.
Yeah, I almost think that this is like a power move, honestly, and it's not really about, okay, like we want to have a tough conference like the SEC and we want to attract all these good players. I think it's more of like they understand that they're not going to have a voice at the table at all if the SEC is just running everything. And I think that this is their way. Hey, we can join forces. We can become, the second mega conference. And ultimately have a voice on just how, with the NIL and with everything else coming down the pike and how much college football is changing with the importance of television programming and whatnot. This at least gives them a voice. And if you're like the Pac 12, it might be, you might be one third of a conference. Your voice might be less, but your voice would probably have been zero if things continued to play out the way they were.
Oh, absolutely. Pac-12, yeah,
Hmm.
they'd be at the kiddie table, right? Like they wouldn't even
Yeah.
be in the
Yeah.
same room eating dinner, right? And I get it, and I totally get it, and it's smart. Really, what the end of all this to me is what happens to the Big 12, and I think you've seen a lot of good football start to come out of the American. Um, I think you're going to see some type of alliance between the Big 12 and the American at some point. You got your Cincinnati's, your UCF's. You got some good teams buried down there. Navy's still a good team. Um, so I mean, Big 12 is really the odd man out, and they probably got to make a move. They're down to what 8 teams now. They can't really survive. They're either going to split or they're going to have to tie up with some of these Group of Five teams.
Yeah. Very interesting to see how it's going to play out. College football changing right before our eyes. You know what I mean? And I think, the NIL stuff, the players getting paid, and then the mega conferences, it just impacts recruiting, impacts everything all the way down. But as a fan, we're going to see some great matchups. And I think that's really what it's all about. Expanded playoffs and, these interconference matchups are going to be, more prevalent, the top teams playing each other. So that's going to be good. But listen, let's get into the games. I mean, that is what we're here for. And it starts off at 1 p.m. today. Um, Scott Frost on the hot seat in Nebraska, right? Takes on Illinois, first year head coach, right? And, I think that this is a crucial game for Scott Frost. There are 7-point favorites. This thing opened at 9.5. Money coming in towards Illinois, the dog in this spot, right? We also seen the total come down 54.5 last night, down to 52.5 is the market consensus right now. So we're seeing a lot of movement. We saw a lot of movement towards Illinois early, and now we're seeing a lot of movement towards the under this morning. I'm feeling like, what are your thoughts on Scott Frost and Nebraska taking on the Fighting Illini today?
Yeah, it is. It's the hot seat for sure, and it's burning hot for Scott Frost. And I mean, first I'll touch on the total there. I think Nebraska went over once last year, had one game over, and it was versus Illinois. So I'm not too surprised to see people getting a little sharp on that number and trying to bring it down a little bit, because they're bringing back Adrian Martinez for about the 14th straight year at quarterback. So I think you're getting a similar Nebraska team and a team that doesn't tend to score a lot of points. So I'm not too surprised on the over-under or the total. But where you get with Scott Frost, and you're right, the hot seat isn't – this is as hot as it's been, as they brought in the new athletic director, Trev Alberts, a great Nebraska player back in the day. And he's not going to put up with this. And I think it's win or go home for Scott Frost this year. And it has to start today. It has to. Because if you lose Illinois, and they lost Illinois last year, he might not make it through the season.
Yeah, revenge matchup for Nebraska, which is really important. And, when I look at, Illinois in this matchup, and a lot of people like the dog, especially at the number when it was over the key number of 7. I do have a play on this one in the Sharp Discord. I do have a play on this one. And, so make sure you go check that out. Join the Sharp Discord. But I like Illinois here in this matchup. They're returning 82% of their starters on offense, 86 on defense. The roster has 42 seniors. Illinois has a lot of returning production on the offensive line. Chase Brown, more capable at running back. Brett Bielema, former nose guard, coached at Iowa. And I think that that's key, is when you see Illinois and how this matchup is set up. I think that this is going to be a heavy running game type of game, deep ground, both teams trying to execute the running game, chewing off a lot of clock. And I think that that's the type of game you're going to see, a very slow game from both teams trying to establish themselves physically in this game. So I think it's going to be interesting. You look at Scott Frost. What does Scott Frost have? Coming into this game, he has the talent advantage, Dave. And it's, when we look at these two teams from a recruiting perspective, it's night and day. It's, Nebraska is 17th, Illinois is 67th. There's a huge gap in recruiting, and I think there's a huge gap in talent on the field. And it's really going to come down to whether, Scott Frost can get his guys going, and actually, turn that talent edge into, wins in the win column. And that's really what he struggled with. And I think that the struggles that Nebraska has had have come on offense and have started around the quarterback, Adrian Martinez, right? So Adrian Martinez hasn't really lived up to expectations for Scott Frost. And I think that is really why they've kind of struggled. And, can he get going in this game? I'm not sure. Last year, this is a team that was outside the top 100 in passing, outside the top 100 in EPA per pass, and explosive plays. The offensive line, word that I'm getting is, they're getting chewed up in practice. So hearing that it's not been a great, lead up for the offensive line getting ready into this game. So they're going to have to rely on their defense in this matchup. And I just think, Illinois is a team that's going to come in and they're going to try and run the ball. So I think you have those two forces clashing, which is why we're seeing movement on the under, and, why we're seeing, the line move towards Illinois as well. It is settled at the key number of 7, but I think that, that's the type of game that we're in for today. Very low scoring, both teams trying to establish the running game. Your thoughts, Dave? I think we might have lost Dave. Let's see. All right, and just give me 1 second here. All right, so we are back here, Dave, working through some technical difficulties. Apologize about that, but we're going to move on to our next game. The next game on the docket this week is without a doubt. Um, Actually, UConn and Fresno State is the second game at 2 p.m., so we can talk a little bit about that. Um, Fresno State at against UConn today. This is like the haves and the have-nots. I feel like in this matchup, Fresno State 3-3 last year. They had 19 returning starters, laying a very big number. When we look at the odds boards, with this game, Fresno State, this thing's around 27.5 is the consensus line, 63 on the total. So you can kind of tell that this is the haves and the have-nots with these two teams. And I think that the line bears that out. But when you look at Fresno, 19 returning starters, 2-1 is double-digit faves last year. They lost outright to New Mexico in the finale. UConn just doesn't have a lot going on here. They opted out. They kind of punted on last season, didn't play at all. They don't have much of a passing game. They're going to look to run the ball and keep it away from the Fresno State offense. I think that's kind of what you see here. The Bulldogs defense, real physical. They get after the quarterback. The Huskies defense, 123rd in stopping the run. They allowed 220 yards per game. I expect a big day for Ronnie Rivers. He had close to 800 total yards last year. And that's kind of how I see this game playing out. Are they going to be able to stop the running game for Ronnie Rivers and that Fresno State rushing attack, which is kind of the catalyst to their offense? That's what you see everything kind of happening, with that offense. It's off the running game with Ronnie Rivers. I think they're going to have success. UConn has a very strong nose tackle, defensive tackle that is going to be able to, disrupt some things, but they don't have a ton of talent on defense. So I think that they're going to struggle a little bit. Dave, we got you back, buddy. How you working out? Working through the technical issues?
Yeah, you go to a new house. The internet here is probably just on Cricket, so I'm on my phone, but it's working a lot better. Yeah, I got it all in, but I know you're on UConn Fresno now. Let me just wrap up what I had on Illinois, Nebraska. I'm actually on the other side of you. I like Nebraska a lot today.
Mm-hmm.
I like them at -7. I think it's a revenge game. They brought in a lot of new talent, transfer running back from USC, JUCO transfer wide receivers. They know where they struggle. Luke McCaffrey is no longer a problem for Adrian Martinez. He can actually play this year without, fear of being benched on one bad throw. So I just think it's their time to really, take advantage of Illinois being a new head coach in Brett Bielema, switching from a 4-3 to 3-4. I just think Illinois is going to take a little time to work it out. And I'm going to take advantage of that today and try and see if they can, jump on Illinois' struggles. But the under is the one thing that what you said is really what scares me with the -7. But I'm going to stick with Nebraska. That's who I like today. As far as your UConn Fresno, I think you're on it. I think Ronnie Rivers is the key here. I mean, Jake Haener at quarterback, it was an all honorable mention NWC last year. Connecticut's terrible, right? Terrible. Like 125th in SP Plus rankings. There's only 130 teams. They're bad. But
they're not very good.
And it's their first trip ever to California. That was something I found interesting, especially with head coach Randy Edsall. He's decent, and he's out there trying to get different games. But I don't know if I have a number or a play on this game, but it's going to be Fresno all day. I'm worried about the back door. Probably lay off. If I did lean aside, I'd probably take the points. But it's not going to be close, and you got to keep an eye on the back door.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's a real big number, and I think a lot of people are just kind of like, playing it to fade UConn, right? They're like, okay, definitely not betting on UConn. We're laying the points no matter what they are. Fresno should be able to steamroll them. Yeah, I mean, I don't think UConn can put up too much of a fight, but don't have a play on that game as well. But going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be interesting to watch. One of the key things this year is going to be, how those teams that played in spring, deal with fall? Like, do they face fatigue? Do they come out strong? And how those teams that just didn't play all together, if there's teams that didn't play, what do they look like? Teams that had, shortened, truncated seasons, like some teams, in the Pac-12 only played a couple games. So, seeing how that plays out during the season, I think is going to be huge. But let's talk about a game I'm very interested in, and that is at 3:30 today, and that is Chip Kelly and the UCLA Bruins against Hawaii. So 3:30 UCLA and Hawaii in UCLA. So it's not, you don't get the traveling to Hawaii angle that a lot of people like to play at 1 o'clock in the morning, right? We're in UCLA. We got an afternoon game. Chip Kelly needs results. We talked about Scott Frost as well. Chip Kelly right there. Maybe the seat isn't as hot as it is in Scott Frost because they did look okay last season. Lost a lot of close games.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this one, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, Hawaii's one of those teams you love to bet. I mean, every bettor that plays college football loves to bet. You mentioned the 1 a.m. game. It's the get back game. A lot of times you're hoping for the Rainbows out in Hawaii to, take advantage of their home field advantage. And they did that last year. And one of the interesting angles you see is second-year head coach Todd Graham was successful last year at 5-4, but he won 2 games against the Pac-12 with Oregon State and Arizona. Now, both were in Hawaii, I believe, but still, he has that history of playing in the Pac-12. He was Arizona State head coach. He knows how to travel to UCLA. He knows a lot of this territory and the landscape he's gone through. And Hawaii's always a very interesting team. So I've kept that in mind. They have a great quarterback too. One of those dual threats that can run and throw, a threat for 300 every day, and Chevin Cordiero. But then you look at UCLA, and one of the X factors there is Dorian Thompson-Robinson is probably a dark horse for Heisman. In Chip Kelly's offense, how he can really stretch the field vertically and horizontally. I think Robinson does both that, and it's going to be interesting. They're going to be a high-powered offense. Really, can they stop? Can they stop Hawaii? UCLA is looking like they're 68th in SP plus in defense, so right in the middle of the pack. They're 10th in offense, so they're going to score. Can they stop Hawaii? Because this is a key number today. 17.5 is one of those key numbers. It's a very interesting game, and I do have a side, but I'll let you break it down even further.
I mean, when you look at this game, right, this thing opened at 14, right, shot all the way up to 18, and now has started to come down a little bit. We're even seeing it back at 17 in some spots. Did give this play out on the Sharp app to Discord bettors as well. And, this is, I think you hit the nail on the head when you talked about, how this game could play out, right? So you have, UCLA, 4 losses in all close games, right? Look at the games that they lost the last time that they were on the field. They lost 6 to Colorado in altitude, right? In a game they put up 478 yards, right? But they were -4 in turnovers, right? They lost by 3 at Oregon in a game where they outgained the Ducks. They were -3 in turnovers. They lost by 3 to USC. They put up 549 yards, outgained them by 100 yards, still lost that game. And then they had the finale, the 1-point loss to Stanford. It was in 1,000 overtimes, right? They put up 1,000,000 yards. They were like -5 in turnovers. And it's just, can they, not beat themselves? And that's kind of, been the drawback with Chip Kelly and his style and his up tempo. You have to be able to take care of the ball. You can't have a lot of 3 and outs. You can't put your defense in bad spots. Now, they're going to score points. There's not going to be a ton of 3 and outs. I think they have a ton of offensive weapons, and they have so much returning. You talked about the quarterback, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I agree with you. I think we're going to see his game go to the next level. The offensive line returns all starters. They got Duke transfer. Britton Brown comes over at running back. They got a guy, Zach Charbonnet from Michigan. So the running game is going to be strong. 5 of the 6 wide receivers return. So, this is the most experienced Chip Kelly. Like, this is really Chip Kelly's team, when we look at the UCLA Bruins. And, listen, when you look at Hawaii, it's I don't think they're going to be the explosive team that everybody thinks that they're kind of used to. I mean, they were outside of the top 100 in finishing drives. UCLA was top 28 in sack rate, right? So UCLA, if they can get after the quarterback, if they can change some things. One of the things that UCLA did very well defensively, Dave, last year was they kept everything in front of them. Like, they're very bend, don't break. And us being from Philadelphia, I think we know kind of how that was Chip Kelly's style a little bit. Like, hey, we just need the defense to slow the offense down, and our offense is going to take over and win. And if they have the talent to force Hawaii to matriculate down the field and not have those explosive plays, can Hawaii be consistent enough to keep up with UCLA? And I think that's the key. Is if you think Hawaii is going to be able to score on UCLA's defense, you're going to like the points here, because I think that there's going to be very little resistance for this UCLA offense today.
Yeah, and you made a point about their defense leading the Pac-12 in sacks last year. They let up 35 points per game, and you got to get accustomed to hearing those crazy numbers and think that's not that bad. It actually, I think, was sixth in the Pac-12. It's a new college era where points are aplenty, and they do bring back their leading sack and tackler in Caleb Johnson, linebacker at 5.5 with 44 tackles. They do have some continuity on defense, like you said. The offense, no doubt, no question. Like I said, 10th in SP plus predicted, especially with that three-headed monster at running back that you talked about, and all receivers being back, plus their top tight end, top leading receiver. So, I think, personally, I think it's going to be too much for Hawaii. I do think it's finally Chip Kelly's year. You almost got to phase out some of the people that were there from the previous regime and really need that third year to really start cranking away and developing your system. And the best part is the continuity with the quarterback has been there the whole time. Dorian Thompson-Robinson has been his starter the whole time, and now he really gets that chance to, make it his own. He's going to be able to make those play calls, the adjustments. He gets Chip. I think sky's the limit for this offense, and as long as they can be decent on defense again, and that's what I'm asking, decent. I think this is just tough for Hawaii to really stay with the speed and the scoring punch that UCLA is going to have. I like UCLA with the 17 and a half, wherever you can get it. And I'm playing them today for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting year. The one angle that I've heard that I don't necessarily agree with, Dave, and I wanted to get your take on it, because I feel like when I'm seeing people back Hawaii, I keep hearing about how Chip's going to take his foot off the gas. LSU's up next. He's going to come out very vanilla in a game that he knows he can win. And I actually think it's the exact opposite. Like, I don't think Chip holds anything back. I think when you look at this UCLA schedule, it's extremely difficult from top to bottom, one of the toughest schedules in the country. And this is a year where he needs to, show results. So, like, I don't see that LSU game factoring at all. Like, I think that when he wins games, he's going to have to win them by a wide margin to kind of make an impact, to show how good his team is, and to kind of get some respect in the Pac-12. And I think he does that. And the one thing that we did see with Chip Kelly throughout his career is when he can beat a team physically and he can run on a team, he's relentless. I mean, he doesn't seem like he lets up. He just kind of pounds them into the dust. So interesting to hear your talk on how much do you think Chip Kelly and the UCLA could be looking towards LSU?
I think it's none. And I really believe that, especially when you have a young team like you talked about last year. We already documented the way they lost games last year. I mean, the UCLA USC game was just abysmal. They were up, and just started throwing picks and just couldn't stop them on D. Slovis threw like 2 late touchdowns. I think you can learn from that. And I think there's no reason to take your foot off the gas. And again, you get back to that key point about what does Chip do best? He runs. They run the ball. And when you look at teams that, take the foot off the gas, they don't stop running. Those are the teams that if they can run the ball well, they'll continue to stretch that lead or hold that distance from their opponent. And I just think the physicality up front, the returning offensive line, Hawaii smaller on D, I just think they wear them down and then keep running. I think this is potential for it's a really I don't see them letting off the gas. And even if they are, they're just going to be physically better. Then I'm not worried about, them letting up if they're up 25-30. I'm not worried about them letting that up and letting Hawaii back in the game that easily.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, Hawaii, defensively, I'm not sure that they're going to be able to hold up in this matchup. And I think that's really the key. I think, the people that are backing Hawaii are backing them because of the offense. But, you look at both levels of their front seven ranked outside the top 100. They get a lot of people back there, but is it good returning production? That's kind of the key, right? Everyone's going to have returning production this year, but is it returning production if you're just returning bad players or players? I shouldn't say bad players that just aren't physically up to the challenge. Is experience going to make a difference in those situations? I don't know, maybe a little bit, but
No, but yeah, I agree. But look at Hawaii. What are they strong
yep.
out offensively? Their quarterback led the team in rushing. Chevin
Right.
Cordero, like it's not bombs away. I'm down 25-30 and can just start ripping it. He had one game when he was a big passer. It was Nevada, but I'm not even sure they're built as a comeback team. They need to stay close early. And
Mhm.
yeah, I'm not worried if we can stretch this out early. I do feel really good about UCLA covering this one. No backdoor. I'm not worried.
Yeah, yeah. So, it's kind of settled. I mean, when you look at the line, it's kind of settled around, we're seeing some 17s out there, some 17s and a half. Don't think this one's going to get back to 18. But, obviously if you do like UCLA, you want to hit those 17s that are out there. So, good
I
luck
think
to
it's
everyone.
the
I
right
can't wait.
number.
This is going to be my favorite game of the day, Dave.
I agree. I think it's the right number. I mean, SP plus. If you look at the gap, it settles the advantage on neutral field around 18 points. Now, take some home field into play, and that's probably why you might get in the 2021. But I think 18, 17 and a half is really probably the right number. And you're right. It's going to settle around there. And it's probably my favorite too. As much as I am interested in Nebraska, Illinois, but neither team's going to be very good throughout the full year. It's just the more competitive game today. UCLA's got a chance to maybe do something in that Pac-12, and that's why I really want to key on this game and see how that offense flows.
Yeah, yeah, 100%, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. And like I said, real tough schedule for UCLA. So I think they're going to be a really good team. Can they get through that schedule? A lot of talk about their win total and whether they can get there or not. And I think the scheduling is going to be a huge part
Yep.
of it. Later game. This game has gotten a ton of action, Dave, when you talk about it. The UTEP Miners, not a very good football team historically, right? Taking on New Mexico State, team that we saw a little bit in the spring following the SBS and kind of cashing in. Miners laying double digits here, -10. And we have a total of 59 in this game. And Dave, we saw a lot. I'll say it again. We saw a lot of New Mexico State in the spring. They were a very interesting team to try and handicap because they came out and they said, listen, pretty much like we're treating these spring games like preseason. Like we're
Yeah,
going
didn't
to
they play
they
Tarleton?
they did. They
Yeah,
did. They played Tarleton. They split. Tarleton smoked them one week, and then
yeah.
I think they gave Tarleton their first or their second loss, if I remember, in a game. Both high scoring affairs, right? But the deal with them is they came out and they were like, hey, we're going to make sure everybody plays. We're not going to take this too seriously, almost like these were scrimmage games. I think they only played like 3 or 4 games. And they looked very poor. The defense looked poor. Like I said, I mean, Tarleton put up 43 on them, not a lot of resistance. And I think that is a lot of that is going into this game. I mean, you look at, is New Mexico State better than what they showed in the spring? We're going to find out because this is a lot of points for a UTEP team to be laying. And I know a lot of people are on UTEP, makes a ton of sense. But listen, they were 3-5 last year. They were 0-4 in conference, right? They return almost everybody on offense. The whole offensive line returns. 4 guys on that offensive line have at least 10 starts, right? So, they're bringing everybody back and they can build. They have continuity. They got solid running backs. Deion Hankins is like fast, powerful back. And they got, Wadley returning from injury. So he's the more dynamic of the two, but Hankins is really their number one guy. And it just really comes down to like, I think, trying to handicap, is this UTEP offense and this team overall going to be good enough to really be double-digit favorites and put away a New Mexico State team? You look at UTEP, the 2 games that they were favorites last year, they split. They were -7 in both those games. They lost, or they didn't cover against Abilene Christian, 17-13. So they don't have a lot of, as better as we talk about, teams that kind of deliver in certain roles. And this UTEP team doesn't have a lot of experience in this role as a double-digit favorite, especially being winless in their conference last year. I just think that this is a very tough game for me to handicap when I look at it. Like, it's just too much variance with New Mexico State. We know they're bad. We expect them to be bad, but are they really going to be that bad?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I look at a lot of different rankings, and New Mexico State pops up as the worst team in college football in almost all of them.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because of what you say. In the 2 games last year, and they were really like practice games, and then they didn't show much going in. You have no idea what you're going to get out of New Mexico State. And then on the other side, UTEP, I think they were 2-34 in the 3 years coming up to last year, between 2017 and 2019, 2-34. Well, they won 3 last year. That's more than they won in the 3 years combined previously. So there's a little bit of momentum, I guess you could say, building with UTEP. But the things that scare me there, they were 0-4 Conference USA play. Yes, this isn't a conference game, but really when they played teams that were in D1, they weren't very good. They were, I think, they averaged 23 points per game, which came 110th in college football. They're not a high scoring team. So when you look at that and you understand that they don't, I think they average 120 yards on the ground, 208 passing, barely 330 for the, total offense. How can you give them 10 points? It's tough when a team that can't score, doesn't average much, really isn't that good. I get New Mexico State's terrible, but I just feel like they don't play as favorites. To be a 10-point favorite is a lot of points. I don't care how bad New Mexico State is. And this one just scares me a little bit. I know, again, the Aggies are bad, but
Yeah.
I kind of lean with the points. But I'm still
You're right. I'm probably not in the business here of betting the Aggies, regardless of what the spread is, just because, like I said, there's so much variance there. But I agree with you that this is a lot of points for UTEP, man. And I'm just not comfortable on either side. Like, I know a lot of people I respected on UTEP here. They expect them to run away with it. Very well could be a likely scenario. Just not a scenario I feel like I want to bet on. This weekend, but it's going to be a lot of fun. I'll be interested to see this game. This, starts the nightcap. We got 2 games at night. We got UTEP, New Mexico State, and then we got the San Jose State game. So not great games to bet into, as we get late, but it gives people. That's right. That's right. Yeah. If we're winning, hey, maybe we take a stab here, but it'll be really interesting to see, what UTEP comes out and how they. Are they able to kind of perform at that level, being double-digit favorites? And we'll see if this New Mexico State has any life. Like, that's really the thing is after that spring and, the program just seems to be in shambles. Can they come out opening day, give out a good effort? We're going to find out.
And honestly, they beat UTEP the last 3 times they played. When you're bad and you look at your schedule and you're like, well, here's the one game we might be able to win. It gives you a little more juice, energy, and that's kind of how I'm looking at the Aggies here, to have a little bit of that, dog mentality where they can actually win a game. So I could be totally wrong. They could come out and get smoked by 50, but I kind of think this is their one shot, one opportunity. That's all you got. Let's go.
Yeah, definitely, man. And it's just one. I'm not like I said, I'm not saying UTEP can't destroy them. I'm just saying I'm not comfortable betting on it. The late game now, we have San Jose State. Talk about comfortable betting on. This is a team that everybody was, pretty much riding to the window last season. They were a moneymaker for everybody, overperformed market expectations. San Jose State, 6-1-1 against the spread last year, cash for everybody. They take on a Southern Utah team, FCS team, 10 o'clock at night. This is, not the greatest game in the world to kind of bet at. And this is another one where there's just a lot of variance. When I look at this game, Dave, I do have some little bit of experience with Southern Utah, from the spring. But they're a team that's pretty much one-dimensional. Like, they're going to try and get the passing game going. They're going to try and throw it. It really comes down to, again, another team. Can they be comfortable in this role, laying, these types of points, right? So, we look at the odds board and we got, the consensus numbers 25 that they're laying here. There's some 24.5 out there, DraftKings and some other spots. Totals 57.5. So this is a huge number, for a team that really kind of broke down the door last year, right? And can they continue to break down the door? They were 7-1. They beat Boise to win the Mountain West. Real key factor when we talk about that total. I don't have much on the total on this one, but last 6 games have gone under for San Jose State. So this one sits at 57.5. Thought that was interesting. Southern Utah was a team much like UCLA, Dave, when we talked about playing a lot of close games. All their games were close, but they lost them all, right? And
Yeah.
they're 1-5 in the spring. Didn't lose them all, but lost almost all of them. And they just kind of chuck it up there, dude. And they're not really, you know, not really balanced offensively. And that's, I think, is going to be the key here, right? We know, San Jose State, number one defensive line in the Mountain West, top 10 sack rate. Are they going to be able to get to the quarterback if they're one dimensional? I think they get, 7 of their 8 defensive backs back. So the secondary last year, was probably, I don't want to say the weakness of the team, but wasn't a strength of the team. I think they could be a strength this year. So when you combine that strong secondary with the defensive line for San Jose State, they're going to be in for a good year. I think it's going to be another good year, but this is just another huge number that I don't have a lot of confidence in that team, showing that they can, cover a number like that, being comfortable in this role, laying, mid 20s, minus 25 or whatever we have it at, is the situation with this team. So not sure if I'm comfortable laying the points with San Jose State as a huge favorite in this situation. Your thoughts, Dave?
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, it's funny. San Jose State was, in a lot of aspects looked at like a cellar dweller last year, and they definitely exceeded expectations. Many rankings had them outside the top 100 going into 2020, and they finished 7-0, 7-1 overall, but 7-0 in conference. They were definitely they were a darling, right? They were a covered darling, and it's can they take that momentum? And what you noted is they're not like this high powered offense. It really starts with their defense. I think they averaged like 28 points a game last year. So they're a type of team that really can, affect the game on the defensive side of the ball, which makes them a really, a nice, attractive team coming into this year as well, bringing back, I think, 9 or 10 of the starters on defense. So, again, a little bit more about Southern Utah. So I'm going to tell you, I do this when we get late in the, games way down on the market, afterthoughts. And I'm looking at mascots here. We got the Titans and the Thunderbirds. I got to take a Titan when I'm worried about it. Now, Southern Utah's mascot's name is Thor. They're the Thunderbirds. That's pretty cool, right? But
yeah.
And he goes out there with the hammer. I don't even know how to say that name that Thor carries around. So that's pretty cool. But in the end, it's a Titan. All right, if I got to take a side, I'm going San Jose State, baby. Spartan. I'm sorry, not Titan, Spartan.
Yeah, Spartans. They're the Spartans. Yep. But it's one of those interesting games. Like I said, I don't think I'm going to have a play on it tonight. Like I said, laying 25.5, I'm just not there in this game. But it's going to be fun to watch, and it's going to be fun to see because, again, this is a team last year, very profitable for everybody, great against the spread. Will they continue to outperform market expectations? Or is it going to be a situation where, the market catches up with them and then all of a sudden it goes the other way, right? I think a lot of people are looking at Coastal Carolina, some other teams like that in the same realm as like now that the market's on to them. Last year was the time where we cashed in, we got the money on them. Is it going to continue in year 2? Always something to keep an eye out. Sometimes the teams that make you a lot of money one year might be losers the next year. So we got to keep a close eye on it. We'll see how San Jose State starts off the season tonight.
I mean, the Mountain West is strong too. I already previewed last week, how much we like Nevada. Boise's in there. We talked Fresno. Their head coach in his 5th year, Brent Brennan, is 15-30. You take away his 7-1 last year, he's 8-29. Like that was just how much of an aberration that came out. I'm going to be keeping an eye on this team. I think it's definitely a return to, back in the middle, maybe even lower. But we'll keep an eye on them. They do have some weapons returning, but yeah, for now, it's a week 1 of college football, week 1 of pro football, week 0, as they want to call this. The books know almost as much as we do. They really do. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're looking at the same numbers we are. They're looking at the same people, the same returners. They're trying to grade the starters, the incoming recruits, the transfers, all the stuff we're trying to do. So, it is a chance to potentially take advantage of lines. This one, I don't have a good feel.
Yeah. The night games, I might cool off. Like I said, I got plays in the two early ones.
Yeah.
Excited about that. Can't wait to get back into the action. I think they're both going to be solid winners. So pumped up for this game. Now, before we get out of here, Dave, do we want to talk about a little bit about who we expect to see in the college football playoffs?
Yeah, I think we can both agree. We're going to see two usual returners, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but I think we'll see Bama and Clemson. I just don't think there's enough talent in the ACC, regardless of what Clemson does in week one against Georgia, for them to really be challenged. I think one loss is the most you're looking at with that team. They're stacked again. I do think Clemson and Bama return. Do you feel the same?
Bama, yes. Clemson, I'm not so sure. Like, it's
Yeah.
really going to depend on week one. Like, I think if they lose that game to Georgia, I think it's a little bit more likely that they can slip during the season. And I'm not 100% sure. And I just think that there's going to be some teams that are competitive, man. So, but I'm definitely with you on Bama. Clemson, I think we're going to find out a lot week one.
All right, and then my team that I really, really like getting there. If you want to take some value and some money, some odds, I think they're around plus 300. I love Georgia. I really
Mhm.
love Georgia this year. I think that they're right there with the talent of Alabama, and that defense is the only thing that concerns me. And we went through this in our SEC preview. Is obviously Kirby Smart. I do think they win week one with Clemson, and I do think that helps give them the edge to get to the college football playoffs. All things are off. If they lose week one and they end up losing the SEC championship to Bama, forget about it, right? But I
Right. I
think we
think they're in
do see.
trouble.
I think we see two. I think we see two SEC teams. We saw two ACC last year. It's not out of the realm. So Georgia's my other team. I feel real strong about. How about you?
Yeah, I like Georgia a lot, and like I said, I think that they're alive in that week one matchup with Clemson. And if they can win that again, I think that kind of tells the story. But I think where we might not see it, I'm just not as comfortable as that we'll see both Georgia and Clemson in the Final Four playoffs. But definitely right there with you. I like Georgia week one
Yeah.
for sure.
Well, and I'll give you my fourth. It's really a coin flip here, and I could go either way. But I guess I'm gonna settle with Oklahoma. I really wanted to put Wisconsin here. I just
Hmm.
feel like their advantage in that side of the Big Ten, and then to be able to play that physical game and against Ohio State with a young quarterback and a few other young positions. Um, I think Wisconsin has a real good shot at getting there. But I'm going to take Oklahoma just from the Spencer Rattler standpoint. It's Iowa State or them. And I just don't see Texas being there this year. And we know TCU's got a little bit up and coming, but it's Iowa State or Oklahoma. And they might play twice. And in the end, Oklahoma always makes it. They
Yeah,
do. And
yeah.
they're 0-4 in the college football playoffs, but they know how to get there. And I think they know how to put on the show. And with Spencer Rattler as part of the show and potential Heisman candidate favorite, it's hard to take them out of the mix. So I'm going to go Oklahoma as my other team.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, Oklahoma is a team. I think they are very strong on the defensive side of the ball. That's
That
the big
too.
difference between that year and this year. And Rattler, second year in the system, Lincoln Riley, we're going to see huge numbers, right? I think we're going to see huge numbers. So I like them. I mean, I like them. I like Bama. I like Georgia. I think Georgia can get there. That fourth spot, is it going to be Clemson? Is it going to be Ohio State? Are we going to see a team kind of pop in there? Cincinnati runs the table.
Yeah.
Do they get the respect to get in there? Right. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. And
Oregon.
Iowa State, yeah, Oregon out of the Pac-12. That's a team that has a ton of talent. Little unsure what they're doing at the quarterback position, but they went with Anthony Brown, and we'll
Yeah.
see how the season goes for them, but they are loaded around him. Kayvon Thibodeau probably, going to be a top pick in the draft
Yep.
as a defensive end. So they, the lots of teams, I think they can sneak into that. And maybe that's the fan of me. Maybe that's me being like, hey, I just want one of these teams like a Cincinnati or an Iowa State, right, to get in there. Matt Campbell doing a tremendous job. They get the whole team back. They're running things back. I don't think they're going to be
30.
strong enough to take out, Oklahoma, but I think, they can, if that's their only loss to Oklahoma, can Iowa State get in there? It's good,
Yeah.
it's good to see. We got to see how these dominoes fall, but going to be a tremendously exciting season. Cannot wait. Everybody, good luck on your bets today. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you go download the Sharp app. The link is in the description here of the YouTube page. So go down there, click that link, download the Sharp app, and join the Discord. Have fun of us. Listen, we got a dozen handicappers out there giving information, talking about these games. It's going to be a ton of fun. Be a part of our community. We want you to be a part of it. The app is only going to get better and better, but we got content on there. We got betting tools. We got models. We got everything. So come join us for the football season. It's going to be a hell of a season. We're going to make a ton of money. I cannot wait. That all starts today. So thank you for tuning in, and we will make some money today. Have a good one.